Good.
All right. And good evening. It is 7:30, and I'd like to call the meeting to order, a regular scheduled meeting of the Bedminster Township Committee for September 17th, 2018. We have our full complement of the Township Committee here, and can I open with Open Public Meetings Act statement?
Yes, sir. Adequate notice of this meeting of the Township Committee was sent to the Courier News in Somerville and to the Burnsville News in Whippany, also to all subscribers, and then posted here at the Municipal Building as of January 8th. We did notice this afternoon for a short delay till 7:30, both on the website and here at the building.
And I will make the comment that was because of a late funeral for a colleague, a family member of one of our close colleagues, and it was my desire to have the Township Committee be able to pay respects. Having said that, I'll ask you all to join in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have two sets of minutes to review and approve, both from our September 4th meeting, the open session and the executive session. Any comments or questions? If not, I'll take a motion.
Move to approve the meeting minutes.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Permits and raffles. We have a raffle license for the Friends of the Shelter, Inc. Raffle date is 23rd of October, 2018. That'll be at the Hamilton Farm Golf Club on-premise merchandise. We also have a raffle license for the Friends of the Shelter, Inc. Raffle date also 23rd of October. Hamilton Farm Golf Club, an on-premise 50/50. And finally, a raffle license for the Bedminster Township School PTO. Raffle date January 8th, 2019, on off-premise 50/50. Any comments or questions? If not, I'll take a motion.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
As we do every meeting, twice, at the beginning and the end, we open that microphone up to a member of the public that wishes to be heard. If you wish to opine, get before that microphone, state your name and your address and whatever's on your mind.
My name is Nancy Boney. I live at Reed Lane in Bedminster. I have a couple questions. There have been some trees planted along 202, 206 on the north side just before you go into the underpass there. I wonder why they were planted and who maintains those.
I believe those are part of the DOT. John, do you want to address that?
Part of the DOT tree replacement program for the construction they're doing on the 287 interchange for the off-ramps to 280 for 78 onto 287. The DEP requires them to do a tree planting program for the amount of trees that they remove, and that's part of that program. So it's the DOT's plantings, and the DOT maintains those. And they also mow the
And who does
grass.
the land belong to?
DOT, Department of Transportation.
And then another question about the new trail that's been done across the road from the River Road Park.
Yes,
Burnt Mills Park to River Road Park?
Yes.
That,
Mhm.
okay.
Now who maintains that?
Bedminster Township.
Are there any plans to add plantings of any kind?
Along that area, no.
Well, there were several
There were some
plantings
that were
put
done
in there,
for some of
because
that.
if you look, there's some deer fence along the route where there were some plantings put in.
Yes, but there are no plans for any other plantings?
Not as
Flowers,
this-
shrubs, or anything?
No.
Okay. Then I have a question about sharing services.
Mhm.
What services are in the works to be shared, and what's the progress on those?
Well, good question, because you're talking to the governing body in this local area that's probably pushed the hardest on shared services over the past 9 years. We've got a shared library, shared fire department, shared rescue squad. We have a shared court with 3 towns. We'd love to get a fourth town in there. There's probably room for a fourth town in there. That would save everybody money. We've also done sharing with the sewer authority, the pump station upstream from EDC, that we work jointly with PPAC and Gladstone and Far Hills. And about a year or two ago, the contractor that was maintaining it wasn't doing as good a job as we desired, and we entered into a shared service agreement with PPAC Gladstone. They had some particular expertise in their public works department, so they work with our public works department to maintain that. We have a shared service with regard to IT between us and Far Hills. We also have a shared service between us and Far Hills with tax collection. As for more stuff in the works, there have been a lot of things we've talked about, and there are a lot of other things that I've advocated over the years. If you look, I wrote a very extensive letter to the editor last year in the Bernardsville News. I won't comment on which things are getting closer and which aren't, because those are under discussions with the neighboring towns. But I think if you want any of those things to bear fruit, we need to talk to our neighboring towns, because this town has been at the forefront of extending a hand and trying to push projects like that. Our difficulty has been in finding a partner that is willing to come to the table to make government more efficient.
And how would you suggest we approach the other towns?
How we approach the other towns? Well, you can do it in the way we've tried in the past, but I would say that the voters should be asking people that knock on their door how they, what their elected candidates are looking to do for shared services.
But there's nothing that's looking like it's going to happen soon?
I won't comment on that because I don't want to spoil something that might happen or might not happen, but I will say this governing body is leaning very far forward to make things happen.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Good question. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to monthly reports from our subcommittee chairs, and we will start with the birthday boy, Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everybody. I've got a JVH meeting coming up on Wednesday, but just to brief you on what's been going on sort of in the off-season, the summer months there. Some of the representatives have been reaching out for the New Jersey Historical Commission to try to get some insight for programming. And I think subject to what we discuss coming up this week, there's going to be an attempt to sort of scale back some of the programs that's been going on there over the years. I think they found that perhaps the open houses have been too many for the folks that are coming around. So they're looking to streamline and sort of do more bang for the buck in terms of what they're providing for the community. Trying to focus on some of the more I guess you'd call cornerstone events, your Field of Honor, your Colonial Christmas, those events, trying to limit the open houses that are out there, and then of course the really trying to reach out for the schools, and not just Bedminster School, but the local schools, and to do more outreach to the children and have more events through the education programs. So more to follow on that. I also, if you recall, Ms. McDonough appeared a couple meetings ago about the Memorial Day banners. Obviously wanted to speak with the JVH folks. I thought that would be a natural sort of marriage there between those two concepts. They could feed off each other. So I've let her know that's coming up. I'll raise that on Wednesday to see if that's something that they'd like to engage in. And then my last point just on JVH is to ask the folks here, how do you feel about where the trailer is? Is that okay? I'm sure they're going to ask for our input on that. I don't know where else they can put it, quite frankly. It's, as you know, it's towards the back now. But has anybody heard anything in particular, comments, good, bad, or otherwise, from folks?
I've heard some mixed comments. I've heard some folks that thought that it was going to be more hidden than it was. You can't see it from the road. It really depends on what angle. I mean, if you're coming at it from the major part of the park, the dog park, the ball fields, well, obviously it's pretty
Front and center, right?
Pretty easy to see, but if you're looking at it from the interstate, from State Highway, It's hard to see.
So just, how do you folks feel about it? I mean, is it something that we're okay with it where it is? Do we want to see try to look for a new location? If so, do we have any ideas? And for me, I haven't heard any negative comments from anybody. I know that some people, you're saying, have, but...
When I say, I can't say I've heard an overwhelming opinion on that. I've heard a couple people, which I wouldn't consider an overwhelming amount. If there was an alternative, maybe back here,
Okay.
Back in the business part of the town, down by DPW, but I don't even know if there's a really good place for it there. John's gonna shake his head and say, I got places and I got things for every place there, so there's probably not a good solution there.
Yeah, my sense is that
Yeah.
it's in the proper location. I just didn't know if anybody had heard anything particular, if the groundswell against it.
And Doug, what's the timing at this point?
Yeah, so that's one of the items I'm going to try to get more information on Wednesday, but the last when we broke before the summer months, the county was supposed to be coming down with their decision as the primary financing aspect. I think we're looking at $300,000. That was the ask. Last year, they just missed it. We're told that other projects that were more shovel-ready got the okay. There is some expectation that it's going to come through this year, so I think the all-in number is, multiple times that, but that's the first shoe that needs to drop. Once you then have that funding source in place, it's easy to go out and to start, or easier to go out to drum up money when you've got a major backing behind you as opposed to...
For JVH to commit to going vertical on the project, do they need the dollars that they're looking for? Is that to not just get the structure erected, but is also to finish it out inside?
Yes.
Would they consider, and maybe you can raise this with JVH when you're there,
Phases?
could they move forward with getting the building constructed before they finish out completely? Well, before they have all the funds needed to finish out
Sure.
the inside.
Like a phasing, putting the foundation in and going vertical and then making sure that it's secured and air, weather tight to the extent that it is, and then worrying about the inside later.
Right, there's, having heard the presentations before from JVH, a lot of the expenses are associated with fitting the interior space out completely to make it case ready.
Sure. No, in the discussions that I've heard since then, it's been, no, let's get it out of the truck. Let's get it up. There's a concern about wood rot. It's been sitting in there now for a year and a half. So let's get it out of there. Let's get it vertical, and then we'll worry about the next phases and finishing it out and putting everything in the cellar and all that stuff later. But the funding that they need to actually get it to go vertical is significant because of the nature of the structure. And
If they get the county grant, will that be enough to get it out of the box?
I need to ask.
question.
I
Because
don't believe so.
that's going to be an issue for the county too, because they don't want to give a grant and not see that get cashed.
Yep.
Or the check get used, I should say.
Yeah, before I give a definitive answer in public on that, let me ask. My understanding is that some additional financing would be needed.
Okay. All right.
I have an update too on the short-term rentals, but we can wait till that part of the
Okay.
program. So that's all I've got. No,
Thank
more
you.
to come.
Mr. Hickey?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. Just a quick update. We talked about rec last time and the fact that Camp Bedminster and the mini camps were very well attended over the last summer and registrations were up about 10%. Well, they did a parent survey and they got 62 respondents. And the good news is that their ratings were very good. They got a 4.57 aggregate on a scale of 1 to 5. So a lot of great comments about the programs that Robin and her team have been running. Some good input in terms of some of the programs that maybe were less desirable or we should cut back, as well as those that we should, invest more resources into. But overall, I think it marries well with the fact that we got a lot of very satisfied folks with that experience, and it was to see that in the survey.
And from the side on rec, historically, that was a program some years ago that was sort of being phased out, it appeared. The numbers are dwindling. It seemed like the interest was waning, and it's done a 180. So Robin's done a tremendous job with that. It's bursting at the seams now. So it's a really nice program that she's running.
And it's good to see the cooperation she got from the school.
Yep.
So I think that's integral to making it a success. So
Yeah.
please pass along our thank you to the Board of Ed. So,
Thank you.
all right, Ms. Jacobs.
Okay, Mayor. Mayor, one of the meetings that you and I were both at was Bedminster Hills Housing Corporation, and we'll be discussing this under resolutions. BHHC did meet and agreed to move forward with the agreement with the township on implementing the affordable housing program. We'll be discussing that at resolution. Land use board meeting this last week. Fiddler's Elbow was approved for minor kitchen expansion. And that was the one application we heard. Farmers Market, just a reminder, we are going through October 27th, all the way through, every Saturday, 9 to 1.
Will there be a sign that tells us that?
There will be signs that tell you that. Robin was actually crossing out September and writing in October. And for this week, these two guys, essentially our Farmers Market house band, will be performing. They'll be there, I think probably from about 10 to about 1, so they'll be there for just about the entire time. If anyone missed it the last time they performed, come on out. They were great. They played really the entire time, and it was just really made a nice atmosphere for the farmers market. Environmental Commission, they have a meeting this Wednesday, and Neshannock Station apiaries will be here in these chambers to discuss pollinators and honeybees and how folks who are interested and want to get involved in apiary and beekeeping can do so. And that is my subcommittee report.
Ms. Santucci?
Thank you, Mayor. Since the last time we met, I don't have an update other than to say that historic preservation is this Thursday at 6. So I'll update you next time.
Alrighty. And I will just add one thing to our BHHC meeting. A kind of a coda to the meeting last week was a discussion on the history of what's gone on with BHHC over the past 6 to 9 years. And I know several years back we had money, the township had money from that was set aside for affordable housing, and probably about 7 years ago, Governor Christie was looking at all the towns that had money sitting around that had not been spent and was looking to grab it back to help out the state budget. And my predecessor made sure that that money got transferred to BHHC, so it was not available to be grabbed and taken away from us for the state, so that money stayed in Bedminster. And over the past 6 years, we've looked at ways to use that as seed money the BHHC has, so that our affordable units, our Parkside units, Cortland, Village Green, some in Timberbrook, have been able to work on common areas and improve areas like lighting and pavement and stairways and other things that, and a lot of it with the grant program for housing association assistance. Because if you know how that works, one of the biggest problems with the affordable areas is that despite the fact that the mortgage and the price is affordable, it's the association fees, the monthly fees, that are really out of kilter with being an affordable house. So when somebody gets underwater, what happens? Well, they may have trouble paying their mortgage, but that'll catch up to them later. But what'll catch up to them first is they won't be paying their homeowner association dues. And if you've got a neighborhood full of people that a certain percentage can't afford their homeowner association dues, well, then all of a sudden that pie shrinks and maintenance in those units suffers. So we put a program together with some assistance on that. Money that helped assist, but if that unit got turned over, that money would come back through the next sale. So it was money that would go out, but it would eventually come back, and it helped stabilize some of those. It's still a challenge. It will continue to be a challenge over the next many years to make sure that those associations are solvent enough to take care of their maintenance needs. But over the past 6 or 8 years, we've done an awful lot to help stabilize that. And that was a good discussion. And that's all I really have. We have a library meeting this week, and more to follow. Judy, Administrator's Report? Got anything for us?
Back in October last year, with the assistance of the Environmental Commission, we submitted a grant application to DEP for electric vehicle workplace charging station program. And We waited, we waited, we waited, and we didn't hear anything. Recently, I got a phone call from DEP saying, not to worry, the program's still there, but they are revamping it a little bit, and we're requesting those applicants that were still interested to update their application because the funding was still available. So I contacted Tim Walters from our Environmental Commission, who was instrumental in submitting the first application. We brushed it off, submitted a new one as of September 5th. It was submitted, and I just got an email the other day that we are in contention for the grant. So it's still coming. More news to come soon. Hopefully, we will get an answer on that grant. But it will be to put electrical charging stations out here in our parking lot for the public that might be coming to meetings here or.
Very green. We'll have a overhead solar array powering electric cars underneath. So my congratulations to Mr. Walters and Chairwoman Moreski from the Environmental Commission for making that stuff happen.
We also have a photo ID program going on with the employees right now. We've had some of our inspectors when they go out from the construction department, from the zoning department, or even from the tax assessor's office. We have a number of people that go out knocking on doors. And a lot of times the question is, who are you? And we haven't had, the police department has a beautiful ID card, but the employees don't have one.
Well, police
So-
department have a
Well,
metal ID card. That helps it a little.
a uniform, but they,
I'm talking about the badge, not the gun, but
so,
You've got that, right?
anyway, we have a photo ID program that the employees are going to be, we just finished photos this week, actually I think today. And so we're using the same company that the police department uses for their cards, and we hope to have them available soon so that everyone will have IDs that they can display. If they're responding for an emergency situation here in town, like Hurricane Sandy, a lot of us were out on the roads, driving around, doing emergency type things, and we weren't supposed to be, but we were essential employees, but nothing that identified us as such. So this would give us that idea as well.
is there any similarity to this in what LEPC has going on with the credentialing?
Similar, but nothing applies to the municipal employees.
All right.
The LEPC has their own credentialing with the fire company and the first aid squad and those members of the LEPC, but not
Right.
township employees.
So Judy, this is for all township employees?
Yes. Yes, it was-
You guys?
We didn't consider the township committee, but we certainly could have if you
I-
wanted to. We're not, we could do photos.
I don't know if
If
that's,
anybody has a need.
All right.
But we hope to have that completed,
Do we need
complete
badges?
photos today.
don't go there.
Good news, this is the time of year we get kind of an update of where we are coming into budget season. I hate to say that, but it's coming. And Trina Lindsay, who's our representative at our health insurance fund, just came from their budget meeting where they released the 2019 health rate costs. And our GIF, HIF, Central Jersey Health Insurance Fund, is reporting over about $6,800,000 in dividends that it will be distributing for the good experience that we've had in the past year. Of that $8 million, about $56,000 will be coming to Bedminster in the form of a one-time dividend. And then our health insurance rates, because of our good experience, will decrease next year. Last year they stayed stable. In 2019, they're going down $12,000. So that's $1,000 a month in our bill. So the employees will see that in the percentage they pay in their paychecks, but then the town will also see that and always contribute. So it's a really good program.
And because budget season in Bedminster, as we all know, is 12 months out of the year, so 56 plus 12, there's about a point on your budget for next year, folks. That's a good thing.
Judy, is that based on claims history
Yes.
within the township or within the HIF
Within the
itself?
town, our 56,000 is based on our own experience, but the 6.8 million is, we have a very large HIF. There's a lot of school districts in our HIF. We're one of the most northern members. It's Central Jersey, it's really south, down into Monmouth County, a lot of shore towns. but it's very large, and the 6.8 million is a reflection on all the members of our experience over the past year. So, that's it.
Good.
You know, it's funny, just a little offshoot on that, and I talked a couple weeks ago, sent you guys all the Sweeney study, and if you remember looking at the Sweeney study, there's a point on, they wanted to encourage, if there was 2 members of the family that were in the state healthcare program, they would mandate one would have to drop it. You'd only get one per family. Well, that makes sense. But then what was surprising about it is they also talked about discouraging municipalities from then having buyouts. The theory was, why buy out when you can simply take it away from the employee? But I thought what was short-sighted about it was, not everybody that's a 2 healthcare household, 2 healthcare plan household, is in the same organization. If your husband or your wife, significant other, has a better healthcare plan, and maybe it's in the private sector, or maybe it's working for a different level of government or whatever, the buyout programs, you know, a couple $1,000s here to save $20,000 there. I was a little disappointed that the study didn't see the bigger picture on that. But that's all under discussion, and I think I still think that study is really important, and I look forward to having a discussion on that and hearing about the state's discussion on that. All right, let's move on to discussion of introduced ordinances. We don't have any. Introduction of ordinances, of new ordinances. We don't have any. But we do have a public hearing on one ordinance tonight, and that would be ordinance 2018-011. That's an ordinance authorizing the appropriation of $270,000 for the reconstruction of Hillside Avenue. This ordinance authorizes appropriating $270,000 for the reconstruction of Hillside Avenue, for which a FY17 municipal aid program grant was received in the amount of $190,000. Can I get a motion to open the public hearing on 2018-011?
So moved.
All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Is there any member of the public that wishes to be heard on ordinance 2018-011? Is there any member of the dais that has any comments or questions? Can I get a motion to close the public hearing for 2018-011?
Move to close.
Second.
All right.
Again, all in favor?
Aye. Can I get a motion to approve ordinance 2018-011?
I'll move.
I'll tell everyone on your street you did.
Yes.
Can I have a second?
You get a second?
Okay, this
There's a roll call.
Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Dickey?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci? Aye. Mayor Parker?
Aye.
Thank you.
We don't have anything on the consent agenda, if I read that correct. We have 5 individual resolutions, starting with Resolution 2018-077, and that's River Road West. That's a local aid application. Any comments or questions on that?
I reached out to Paul Farrell's office this morning looking for a report of the cost. I don't know, this is more of a resolution at this point, just approving that that's our next target.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have final plans yet or the cost of what's going to be yet, but just that that's
Trying to apply for it.
So this is just the resolution that DOT requires, saying that the town is interested so that they'll actually process the grant application.
correct.
Part of that grant application should have an engineer's estimate in it at some point in time.
Right.
Right, but I asked for it, it wasn't, I didn't get it.
All right. Any other questions? If not, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Resolution 2018-078, that's authorizing the contract for the Hillside Avenue Improvement Project. So we've put the money in the pot, and now we have to approve the bid. Any comments or questions on 2018-078? If not, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Do a second?
Roll call vote. Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Dickey?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Mayor Parker?
Aye. Resolution 2018-079, BHHC contract renewal. This was, of course, also discussed at our BHHC meeting, as the BHHC approved the proposed contract. Any comments or questions? If not, I'll take a motion to renew that contract.
So moved.
Second?
Roll call vote again. Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Mayor Carter?
Aye. Also, BHHC 2018, Resolution 2018-080, authorizing the adoption of the Affordable Housing Spending Plan and requesting the court's review and approval of such plan. Any comments or questions? If not, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Again, roll call vote. Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Mayor Carter?
Aye. And finally, also in regards to affordable housing, Resolution 2018-081, that's adopting an affirmative marketing plan. We talked about this a little bit last time. Can we get any comments or questions? Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Again, roll call vote. Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Mayor Carter?
Aye. The bill list. Can I get a motion to approve the bill list pending the approval of individual invoices?
So moved.
Second?
One last roll call vote. Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Mayor Carter?
Aye. Discussion items. Do we have anything that's a discussion item that is not listed as new or old business? Then we will move to new business. Does anyone have anything that's new business? Sounds kind of redundant from the last item, but any new business that is not listed tonight? No? All right, let's move on to old business. Mr. Stevenson, you were going to talk about short-term rentals.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Understand that Jeff Price has been monitoring some of the online sites that are listing short-term rentals in town. And we've got about 76 properties
Wow.
in the township that are registered for short-term rentals. 46 of the 76 are not registered. So letters went out to those 46 owners. I believe 25 or so have come back. So we're starting to track down the remaining, 21?
Mhm.
And he's just going to continue to monitor the online sources. And obviously, this is for, remember, Mr. Anderson was here, the updated fire code. And
Yep.
you got to have registration, and they've got to have a personal contact. So it's really safety and welfare of the citizens that we're trying to track here. We're not looking to stick our nose into people's business, but we need to know what properties are having sort of this revolving door and are having folks there on short-term bases. And I think there's been one additional complaint from what we know about a rooming house. That's just the allegation, so we'll have to see how that plays out. I don't know whether a summons has been issued for that, but I think we're doing more investigation on that. But, 76 is not insignificant, so it's something that we should think about again, policy-wise. Is it something that we want? Is it something that we don't want? Is it...
Do we need to regulate it?
Need to regulate it,
Or is it
exactly.
just fine the way it is?
Precisely. I mean, we've got the fire registration requirement now. We also have the landlord registration, I think the provided state law requires, so you know who's renting these units. But we've got to get our hands around it because it's the wave of the future, and it's internet-based. So
Yeah.
a lot of the times it's not somebody coming down here filing a piece of paper so we're aware of it. It's just happening. So I would
There is a
encourage.
meeting tomorrow with the one you speak about that has a concern. The management company for that neighborhood is coming in, meeting with the zoning official they have more information to assist in the investigation.
So is it fair to say, and I don't know if Mr. Price gave you any of this data, is it fair to say that it's on the east or west side of town predominantly, or is it kind of scattershot?
I believe it's predominantly in the hills.
Okay. But oddly enough, we first heard about it in the western part of town.
Right.
So it's probably a little bit more everywhere than you might think, so.
If you go onto Airbnb or you go into any of the other those sites, you'll find it, and it's primarily in the hills, but it is not exclusively there.
No,
So
and
it's
we've gotten a lot of...
families. It's on properties. It's on cottage properties. It's everywhere. The associations have clearly indicated they don't want to see those units there, and it violates some of the condo rules. Some of the condo associations will enforce, some will look to the township to enforce and talk to Jeff on zoning issues as well. So this is not going away. And Joe, are you seeing this in your other towns?
Hasn't come up. I know it's going on. Hasn't come up as an issue yet, but absolutely, it's everywhere. It's
Do you know, is Far Hills looking at it?
Far Hills is currently not looking at it.
Okay.
Kind of have their eyes somewhere else right now.
Right. Yeah, they've got
yes,
other issues.
Yeah, other housing issues.
Yes.
And in Berkeley Heights, another town I represent, they, it's an issue there, but it's not something that's on the radar, so to speak, that's actively being enforced. But it's going on, and it's a matter of how they want. No one really talked about yet how really to address it.
Well,
I'll bet somebody in Warren's got it figured out.
Yeah, possibly.
So, I mean, I think as we continue this, I mean, it's outreach to the, really it's outreach to the residents to see,
What kind of community?
folks who may be using Airbnb to get that extra income versus the impact Airbnb or those short-term rentals are going to have on those communities. This is, what's the role of government in tackling this? We need more information, right?
Agreed.
But did Jeff get back and say, were there any, what were the sort of responses he's getting? Or maybe Judy,
25?
So of the ones that responded, they, provided all the registered paperwork that they're supposed to as a rental, which we do not have prior to this. A number of the registered letters that went out are just being returned unclaimed.
It's probably the renters getting it, because it's not for me, and the landlord's absentee.
So we're sending it to the registered address of the owner, but they don't live there. So the renter does.
but the registered address for the owner on the tax records should be
Because-
wherever,
Well, but that's what we don't have.
So
We
it's
don't have
it's
a-
uncovering some interesting data.
Contact the real owner if there's a problem.
but shouldn't that be the same as who's ever the record owner for purposes of taxes? So those mailers are not necessarily going to...
So we're sending registered letters to the owner of record at the address on record in the tax office. It's, some renter is living in that home and refuses delivery of that registered letter because it's not them.
No, but...
They might not necessarily
they moved-
want to
who's-
share
But
their
who's going,
new
no, I
address.
understand.
Yeah.
But the tax bill should be going to the owner.
Yeah, but maybe the tax bill's being paid by the bank through the mortgage. So if your property tax is being paid through your mortgage, through escrow,
You're right.
Doesn't
yeah, who cares?
They get the
They
bill.
pay, they pay the bank their mortgage, the
Right,
bank pays
right.
the property tax, and nobody
And
cares.
it works
Or
out
you
fine.
have, you tell your renter, if you get an email from me, just,
Tear it up. There's a shredder next to the door for you.
But I think at the very minimum, we have to make sure that we have the fire registrations complete.
Right.
So that we know who we're dealing with, there's a contact
Yeah.
that we can reach if there's a problem. Beyond that, I agree with Larry. What's the role of government on that? Is that private business, and do we have to interject ourselves into that? That's a decision we have to make as a group. But I think at the minimum, you got to get the fire code registration completed, make sure everybody's registered in the eyes of the fire department. And then from that point forward, it's really what does the community want? It's not a big uproar. I'm not hearing a lot of complaints about it. It wasn't you and the one property that we dealt with or that was dealt with. But I'm not, 76
And the court
properties are out
addressed
there.
it.
You'd think you would have heard more if people really had a problem with it.
Right, the court addressed it, and it was, they paid their penalty, right?
But I think we'll hear more, and we have been hearing, and we will continue to hear more from our associations, because I think they're going to be the voice on this. And we've already gotten people, as you said, Larry, talking to us through associations, and they could probably be one of our better sources of
Right.
interest. So, but in a lot of cases, the associations want to take care of it themselves, and it never gets to us. So, good. Well, Doug, thank you for continuing on that, and thanks to Mr. Price for his diligence on that. Engine braking. Mr. Jacobs.
Sign is still up there on 206, and, once again, this is all anecdotal. but the information seems to indicate that there's been a reduction of noise on that corridor. Once again, I'll turn to, you guys live, right there, and you've said you've heard
I've noticed it.
Yeah,
less frequently.
right.
John, I'm not sure if you've heard any complaints from any of the truckers or chief?
Nothing.
So the sign seems to be achieving its intent.
So the question is, if you can put a temporary sign up there, do we have the legal authority to put a permanent sign on a US highway that would do the same thing? In other words, if we found out for $250, we could paint a sign and stick it in the ground there that would be permanent. Not flashing, not telling us what's for sale at the farmer's market, but just a regular old sign. Can we legally do that?
It's apples, by the way.
Mayor, I tried that at the meeting, and I was shut down on that one.
That by DOT?
Yeah, because DOT supports engine braking.
Yeah.
So they were not happy with my request to throw a stake in the ground and a sign up.
Right.
They were not having it.
They claim this is
Technically, it would require DOT approval.
Right.
It's their right of way, not ours.
All right.
They claim it's a safety issue, and we told them that the grade is very minimal there, only 1 or 2%, but that didn't persuade them.
Maybe we'll have to get a sign. The signs in town that say, "Welcome to Bedminster."
No
By the
engine
way-
braking.
Please don't engine brake. You don't have to say it's prohibited.
Right.
But we could say a town that would rather you not. Anyway, oh well. All right, well,
It's a quality of life issue that, should have been addressed, and it's good that it seems to have had the result that it has, It's just a question of when we take that sign down, will we go back to the old ways?
yeah.
Well, it's been, what, a month and a half?
Yeah.
Almost been up there.
A month and a
About a
half.
month.
So, sooner or later, the sign is going to get relocated elsewhere. It could be back to Black River Road or any other road that's a speeding issue.
It could be on 206
Could be
by
on 206.
River Road Park, I assume.
There might be a farmer's market that might need,
might need signage.
more signage.
All right.
No engine braking and farmer's market.
And apples.
And apples. Oh.
Pumpkin's coming.
Pumpkin's coming, soon enough. You bet.
All right, if there's nothing else, we can go to our, I hate to say this, our second bite at the apple.
No.
Second bite of the apple for public comments. Please, rules apply the same, your name and your address, and speak clearly into the microphone for the audio recording. Takers? Okay. So we do have an executive session, of which I don't think there's any actual come back out and vote on anything.
No.
So in which case, I will go to Township Committee comments. I'll start with Mr. Stevenson, who's been on a roll tonight, on his birthday.
Well, thank you,
On
Mayor.
his birthday.
On my birthday, right?
All gonna wish-
I just want to wish myself happy birthday, and that's all I want to say.
Well, thank you. No, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. All right.
Mayor, I have nothing except happy birthday, Mr.
Thank you,
Stevenson.
thank you.
Happy birthday, Doug. Condolences to, Joe, please express once again condolences to John.
Will do.
Happy birthday, Doug.
Thank you, Steve.
We're very lucky to have you here.
Well, thank you, I appreciate that.
You were that close to going into
Singing.
song.
Yeah,
You were.
I was.
And I will say the same thing, and I do want to say, I just also want to thank my colleagues on the Township Committee and Judy for coming out tonight. John's father passed rather suddenly over the weekend, and it was nice that you could all come out and wish your respects to his family, so I tip my hat to you for that. And with that, can I get a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. All right, as soon as we are back on camera. Are we back rolling?
Yes, sir.
All right, and good evening. It's 9:02. We are out of executive session. We have no further business this evening, so can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, all.
Okay.
Doug, happy birthday, enjoy.
Happy birthday, Doug.
Maybe we'll smoke a couple.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, we need to come up with days.
Thanks, Mayor.
Good evening, thank you. How's the big guy doing?
Just show.
Here.
Just show.
I got a text, I'm like in the middle of like 17 court cases, and I got a text from Lance. Yeah.
Oh.
Hey, Joe, we've met one time before. Nice to see you.
Like, I'm glad they're having fun. Now, life short, if you could do
I
it.
know, I recognize the name.
All right.
You know, but they're down there having fun. Him and Kathy are down there.
Did they ever decide?
Yes,
I
no,
will
they-
continue